Hey, welcome back to the Crafty Nook. I have just finished this gorgeous journal, and I thought I'd give you a little glimpse inside since I did not film any of the process because I've been so very sick. But I did still want to show it off because honestly, this is probably the best work I've ever done. First of all, I made my very first dangle. This is for a swap, which I need to double check and see if it's okay if I mention the Facebook group, but I'm part of a Facebook group and there's a lot of swaps. And this is the November journal swap, and part of the requirements was for it to have a dangle and a tie closure. And those are not something I normally do, is a dangle. So this is my first one. And I just used one of these, what are these called? I don't know what these are called, but I used the big one. And I've attached it through an eyelet on the spine and just used some beads, some buttons, and some charms. The girl who's getting this journal, her name is Carmen. That's why there's a C. And then my closure is just a piece of coffee dyed vintage ribbon or lace ribbon. So let's look inside. So this on the side, you can see there's quite a bit of excuse me, little tabs made of lace and fabric. This fabric here I got, where did I get it at? From a vintage vintage store in Hot Springs, and it literally is the most beautiful fabric ever. Let me see if I can get a piece. Look at that. And this has been sitting in my stash for close to a year. And then when I got all those vintage and antique books from the library, I've had this cover hanging out, ready to be used for a personal journal. And then I also had another blue one. So when I saw this was an open theme, I was like, it's my chance to use this fabric. I also want to make some soft cover journals for sale out of this fabric, so we'll see. Sorry about my voice. It's still not back, but the show must go on. So anyway, this is a vintage book from, let me see. I should have my life together, but I don't, and I'm sorry. It's called An Age of Fiction, from 1957, that I got at the library. They were giving away books last spring, and I did some embossing with a stamp and some gold embossing powder, and then used my little turtle watercolor that I got from Beam Paints. I did a little bit of embossing and watercolor splatter on the back and the front. And then when we open her up, oh, I forgot to put something in there. I might put a little note to the person who's going to get this in there. So I did some embossing with some stamps. This is a Tim Holtz paper. That fabric. This is a pocket. A little cluster with some vintage paper or antique paper. This is an antique piece of paper from 1856. This is authentic. I did reinforce it with some aged tape. This is a little tab with some packaging. Gorgeous. Some vintage music paper from 1930. A piece of magazine paper. I also used two kits from My Porch Prints. They I use a lot of their stuff because it's gorgeous and easy to use. And this is one of the pockets that it came with. I added a little die cut, some more packaging. There is a mixture of vintage paper, magazine paper, antique paper, and coffee dyed paper. And then all of the pieces of ephemera that are in here are either backed on coffee dyed paper or coffee dyed themselves. All of the tag shapes have fabric toppers with the fabric from the spine. Some vintage notebook paper. This is from the 1800s, 1891 to be exact, and I just reinforced the folds with tape so that they didn't crack. Another one of the pocket cutouts from the digital kit that I used. And then there's a couple of these Tim Holtz little cards throughout. I love how the pink in this really goes with the pink in that. And this is a flip out. Got a belly band with a vintage letter from 1939. Actually, I think it's a card. Yes, a birthday card. Lovely birthday card. I will also link where if it's okay with the seller, where I buy this ephemera from. Oh, there's a lovely note in blue on the back. This is actually from Temu, and I love it. Another piece of magazine paper. I added 3 tabs with that fabric, and on each of them there's a little dangly bit. This is a little pocket made with some coffee dyed paper. Vintage book paper. An envelope made out of a sack with a piece of ephemera inside. And this is vintage lace that I dyed myself. Little pocket full of posy. I think that's upside down actually. Yeah. Excuse me. This is vintage Spanish paper. Some vintage writing paper. The other side of that. All of the lace in here is vintage. And again, everything is backed or coffee dyed. A little pocket with some ephemera. The rest is the other half of that paper sack. I'll be shipping this out Monday. Oops, that's not supposed to be in there. I was going to add that, but decided at the end that it didn't really fit. This is an envelope that holds quite a bit of ephemera. This is from 1890. It is a registered letter where they picked it up on December the 5th. The other half of that ledger. This is a vintage recipe for devil's food cake and fruit crumble. This is from a card catalog, I think from the 80s, maybe. I got a whole pack of them from Facebook. And the other half of that. There is another piece of the ledger paper. Another piece of that Spanish book. Some more ephemera. Another music paper. Another vintage bill. This time from a chocolate place. This pocket, this is an envelope. It is still sticky on the top, so if they wanted to close it, they can. A couple of pieces of ephemera and another recipe. Another vintage recipe card. Another envelope that I collaged the front on. This time, it's a pointy envelope. I'm not going to open it because it's the same inside. Another piece of that paper from Temu. Some more ephemera inside this pocket that I've collaged. I tend to not decorate the pages really heavy because I want it to be usable for the person who's getting it. Another Tim Holtz page. Oop, another one of those that's not supposed to be in there. A couple of tags. And that other half of that envelope, that's coffee dyed. This is from 1900. It's from a confectionery. It's the other half of that. Another vintage card. This one from 1938. Another birthday card. The envelope on this one is kind of fallen apart a little bit, but I'll let the recipient decide what they want to do with it. Another one of those registered letters. Another card catalog pocket. And that's the last page. This is actually the card pocket that was on the cover of the book, and I used some undo and pulled it off, and I have added it back in with some age tape and some collage. This is vintage paper, actually from one of these pages in here, and then this is just a little card that I placed in there. The same embossing is on the back, as well as the same splatters. And that is this beautiful journal that I am sad to see go, but happy as well. And with it will be a package, a little packet that's got some of the pieces from the digital kit that I didn't use, some offcuts of the pages, as well as the rest of the lace and a piece of the fabric. So I hope that the person who's getting this enjoys it, and I appreciate you guys coming and hanging out. So thanks for hanging out in the Crafty Nook. I'll see you next time. Bye.